Um, I am going to call the special board meeting of the Arizona Board of Regents to order. And Rachel, can you please confirm that we have a quorum? Thank you. Live stream of the public meeting is available to the public on youtube.com at the ABOR Live link. Today's public session is scheduled from 9 to 10 a.m., and the board will then convene in executive session for the items listed on the executive session agenda. The board is expected to adjourn its meeting at approximately 4:15 this afternoon at the end of the executive session. President Crow, I know I saw you earlier.
I'm behind you. In every way. I'm advertising Code Zero.
Just want to thank you and your staff for hosting today's meeting. Before we get on to normal business, I would like to take a moment to recognize Joanne Walmsley, who today has retired from ASU. Joanne was an invaluable asset to the university. She directed the financial services office that handles the accounting operations of the institution, which is an enormous job at ASU. As the director of financial services, Joanne held a complex job in charge of accounting, including being responsible for maintaining the accounting records and establishing controls to mitigate risk and ensure compliance with accounting principles. She served the university starting in 1983, when she first joined the financial services team, and then has held several leadership positions since then. So I just wanted to say thank you to Joanne for your service to Arizona State University and to the state. We appreciate your work and wish you the best in your next adventures in life. So congratulations. I also have one more recognition. I'd like to recognize one of the most influential women in Arizona. So Lisa Rolney, the University of Arizona's Senior Vice President for Business Affairs and Chief Financial Officer, is named among the 2022 most influential women in Arizona. Lisa's responsibilities at the university are vital and vast, and they include the financial services, human resources, procurement, parking, and the real estate management. One of her most significant accomplishments was establishing the Financial Sustainability Emergency Response Task Force. That is a mouthful. Just weeks after the pandemic began. 7 working groups of faculty, staff, and students created mitigation strategies, innovative new revenue streams, and novel business approaches to help sustain the university's long-term health. More than 80 recommendations were enacted in just 15 months from the task force work. And according to her video, a little-known fact is that she can pitch a tent, fire up a campsite, and navigate her way through the wilderness with a compass and topographic map without getting lost. So I vote on going camping with Lisa. So congratulations, Lisa. Regent Duvall, I think you had a few words.
I do. In the category of recognitions, I want to recognize one of our own. Our chair, Linda Manson, has been named one of Arizona's most influential women. This is a big deal. Obviously, the honor is appropriate. Regent Manson has been an outstanding regent, an outstanding chair in her second year as chair. She's led on a wide variety of issues, as we know, from bringing her Wall Street cred to finance, to capital, infrastructure, general education, and of course, everybody's personal favorite is coaching contracts. And of course, co-chaired the NAU Search Committee, which is a huge task. And her influence goes beyond this board. She served as president of the Northern Prep School, which is really one of Arizona's finest K-12 institutions, and president of Arizona Friends for Foster Children. But what I would say, just by way of recognition, is Linda Manson is always the best prepped person in every meeting that I participate in. She's a critical thinker, asks tough questions, but she's fair, she's open-minded, she's a superb leader, and she's deeply committed to the betterment of Arizona. And so I can't think of anyone more appropriate to recognize, not just as one of Arizona's most influential women, but goodness, as one of Arizona's most influential people. So congratulations, Chair.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. It was a surprise.
Not to us.
All righty, so I appreciate that. And moving on, our first item is the approval of the consent agenda today. And I am moving item 9, the annual cost containment report, and item 11, the request to approve the report on the Committee of Free Expression from the consent agenda to allow for board discussion and separate action. John, are we also tabling? Okay. Does anybody have any conflicts to declare on items 4 through 8 and 10 on the scheduled consent agenda? Seeing none, I also, we are going to table the discussion item number 3, Arizona Teachers Academy fiscal year 2023 budget, as we work through some details underlying that document. So I am going to ask that the board move to approve items 4 through 8 and 10 as listed on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. The next item is the agenda, the fiscal year 2023 Board of Regents office budget request. And John, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Regent Manson. Appreciate the opportunity to review the office budget with the board. The office budget is made of 2 components. One, an internal operating budget. The second is programs that have been housed with the Board of Regents, mainly through legislative action. The programmatic component of our budget, it totals about $80 million and includes items such as the Arizona Promise Program, the Teachers Academy, and a number of other smaller scholarship programs. This year, the legislature added 2 new programs to our office budget, a Veteran Spouses Scholarship, which is authorized for all public higher education entities, so our 3 universities and the community colleges, which allows the spouse of a veteran to go to college for free with a full scholarship for tuition and fees. They also added a program, and for some reason I really struggle saying the word veterinary, a veterinary loan assistance program, which would a doctor of animals comes to Arizona or is one of our students, graduates, commits to practicing in Arizona for 4 years, we will retire their outstanding loans. And so we are just establishing and working through the parameters of that program. It doesn't start until January 2023. You have to graduate after that date and work in the state for 4 years, and then we will pay you money. So they gave us $6 million, none of which we will spend for at least 4 years. But we can encumber that and enter contracts with these individuals, starting after January. So we will be bringing policy for the board to look at for both of those programs to establish them in our book. We've also added this year former programs from the Commission for Post-Secondary Education. This is the LEAP Scholarship Program and the Arizona Teacher Student Loan Program. Again, both of those are eligible for one. LEAP program is for all higher education entities, including some private entities. The Teacher Scholarship Program is only for private institutions. So this puts us in the business of building relationships and with some private institutions. And so we're going through that process now, and we will be bringing policy around that as well. The internal office budget, our operating budget, on here is about $9.5 million. It includes largely personnel expenses, procurement expenses. We put a line in here for marketing research. It's kind of a placeholder. So we go through the year and determine what kind of public feedback we really need to go out and see. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do I have questions? Regent Herbold?
You expect I would have questions, given
I would be disappointed if you didn't, sir.
because of the discussions you and I have had. I want to elaborate on a couple of things, or have you elaborate, just for the understanding of the board as well as myself. But if you take a look at Promise, as we mentioned yesterday, I assume this $20 million gets chopped into 3 pieces, passed out to the universities to implement with a 1 or 2 page set of instructions. And you indicated, besides that you're responsible for doing what else?
Madam Chair, Regent Herbold, we're in charge of marketing the program. Is a responsibility that came to the regents.
So this would go out to the high schools, et cetera?
That is correct. So it's the board set the parameters of how the program is to be implemented, and then part of the money that we were given can be used for marketing. So part of the market research we did last year is what are some of the best ways to go out and inspire students to seek a four-year education and really leverage that Promise program to increase both high school graduation rates, college attendance rates, college completion rates, et cetera. And other states have seen a really effective impact from these types of broad guarantee scholarship programs that have led to those types of outcomes if marketed correctly. So that's what we're looking at.
What part of the 20 million do you hold aside from the universities in order to do this?
So the statute allows us to keep 3% to do that. Last year we kept zero. We only had $7.5 million last year, so we decided to expend all of that in scholarships. This year we haven't made a decision yet on what percent we're going to keep for the marketing component. We can keep up to 3.
Many of these programs have a very, very small budget, and it would seem to me if they're less than $3 or $4 million, by the time you spread them out to the universities, I got to believe the impact is minimal. How do you react to that?
Madam Chair, Regent Herbold, it depends on the program. So, for example, we do a program on, I want to use the right term, adaptive athletics. It's a $160,000 program. It goes to the University of Arizona. It's a small program at the University of Arizona that provides college-level athletics for disabled participants. It's extremely powerful and really a neat program that they have, low cost. Flip side of that, we do this Arizona Teacher Student Loan Program that's for private institutions. It's $425,000. There is a service requirement that we have to track on it to make sure for every year they get a scholarship, they have to teach. The prior law said you had to teach in a certain type of school in order to meet that service requirement. There's a large number of those recipients that have defaulted on that teaching requirement. The administrative burden for a $400,000 program probably outweighs the benefit of that program, I would argue.
From our previous discussions, John, I get the impression that members of the legislature at times come forward and want their favorite idea to be implemented. How much of that do we incur?
Madam Chair, Regent Herbold, incur in terms of programs that come to us?
Yeah.
On occasion, that happens. I had a couple of examples here. The Washington, D.C. internship program certainly wasn't anything we sought. The Veteran Spouses Program was an idea that came from the governor's office, Governor Ducey, and there's no administrative dollars attached to that. I think the University of Arizona could speak at length about the number of programs that have come to them over the last couple of years that they did not seek or perhaps may not have been interested in, but now, they have a dilapidated old mine mineral museum that they're in charge of now. We don't know what we're going to do with.
I walk away with the impression this is dangerous stuff from the standpoint of our budget, because we could get nibbled to death on this in terms of what we have to do to implement some ideas of which we might not necessarily think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think anything we can do to control this so that it doesn't get crazy, we need to do it.
Madam Chair, Regent Herbold, thank you, sir. I agree completely, and I think that is a charge to our government affairs team. So, thank you.
On the operating part, how much flexibility do you have built in here in terms of money you're holding aside or that you might not have used because you haven't hired a particular person or like?
And there's approximately 10% of that budget is not committed.
Well, we've had a huge increase last year of about 30% and a big one this year. So that's why I'm feeling guilty about this budget. But on the other hand, I think I've talked enough.
Madam Chair, Regent Purple, thank you. And then we plan to go through an exercise with the board this year on what is the right size for the office and where should we focus things. I've engaged the university CFOs on that as well. So I think it's a good conversation to have and always be cognizant of. Good.
Thank you. President Curran, do you have?
Well, I was just waiting to see if the presidents were going to comment on each of their component parts of the.
That's the next slide.
That's next. Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure.
All right, so are there any other questions or comments from the board? So I will move that the board approve the fiscal year 2023 Arizona Board of Regents office budget request. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm tempted to say no, but I'll say yes.
Thank you.
And with the trust that next year we will really hammer this thing.
Thank you.
Regent Henley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just join Regent Horrible with his concerns about this. It's why when the governor specifically proposed an allocation for the Arizona Teachers Academy for marketing that, I was really pleased because that meant that we did not have to use other budget to do so. With regard to the Arizona Promise Program, in my conversations with John, I've urged him to make a request for the marketing funds there as well. And I think we should be quite persistent in dealing with each of these in the way that you have suggested, sir, to really assure that both the program gets executed properly as the legislature intended, but also that we are vigilant in our feedback to the legislators about the program. Take, for example, the Veterinary Loan Assistance Program, which nominally sounds like a good idea, and it will primarily benefit California and Colorado graduates, since disproportionately most of our veterinarians in the state of Arizona graduated from either Colorado State University or UC Davis. So yes, it's fine to pay off the loans of veterinarians, but I'm not sure that's helped very many Arizona citizens. So I think both the vigilance and the call for money to implement these programs is both a clear and desired outcome of what you said, Richard Herbal.
All right. Any other comments or questions? No abstentions? No nays? Motion does carry. The next item is the 2024 state budget request. And Lorenzo Martinez is going to provide us with an overview of the 2024 request, and the presidents and the CFOs are going to comment following Lorenzo's overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just put on the screen a table that is also in your materials that just highlights the components of the state budget request for the coming year. It's a $355 million budget request. The biggest component is $250 million for new economy initiative projects. We are still working with the universities to determine the best allocation of that $250 million. What we would recommend, because we have a September 1 due date to submit these requests, is that $250 million be included in the ABOR office budget, and then we can submit budget revisions by November 1 once we determine the allocation. In addition, the other component, major component, relates to financial aid, where the request would ask for $40 million additional dollars for the Promise program. That would bring the program to $60 million in total to fully fund the anticipated demand and need for that program. Also for Arizona Teachers Academy, there's $15 million, which would bring the total program to $30 million. A note here on that $50 million is we would request that appropriation also start in the current fiscal year and continue into the coming fiscal year. And then finally, there's $50 million in the budget request for capital items. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board, from Regents? Okay, then I'd like to ask each of the universities to make some comments regarding their input into this, and so I'll start with Morgan.
I'll defer to President Kroll here first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're very excited about this budget proposal for the state. We've taken Regent Goodyear's advice and are putting forward an extraordinarily healthy and demonstrably positive budget request. I want to make sure that Regents understand that in the public enterprise model that ASU operates in, these numbers are very, very important for our evolution, very, very important for our strategic trajectories, but are small investments in the scale of the institution. And so I don't want to minimize the importance of these investments. I want to sort of characterize them very quickly and then turn to Morgan. First, these are short-term investments because there's something still missing from this overall budget request model in Arizona, and I'm going to come to that in my last comment. The short term is we've been asked to step up on the New Economy Initiative. We're stepping up. I just heard yesterday we have 30,500 engineering students enrolled at this institution this semester. This is unheralded in the history of the United States. No one has ever been able to achieve this. And so that's just one of our New Economy Initiative projects. And so we're continuing to accelerate all of that. And I won't walk through all of that, but this investment of $250 million to help the 3 universities to move forward in this building the new economy for Arizona are really important. Arizona Promise is very, very important. That's a small incremental adjustment. We need these small incremental adjustments. Our spend on financial aid of our own resources, just to put this in perspective, will exceed $700 million this year. Our spend will exceed $700 million. Just to put that into perspective. So Arizona Promise is what we hope can be an underpinning stepped up program over time to help Arizonans have more access to the institution and the university. The $50 million of capital, I'm just trying to put into perspective, we're going to spend $250 million, including the equipment, at least on our new manufacturing building being built in Mesa on the Polytechnic campus. But I've got one building that we have to try to find a way to win the national laboratory, or one of the national laboratories for microelectronics that's connected to the CHIPS Act. That single addition to the Macro Technology Works building in the ASU Research Park, $350 million, no equipment. I mean, I was just trying to give you the scale of these things, and the scale of things that we're trying to figure out. That then leads up to the fact that this is fantastic. We're going to be all in behind it. Maybe we can even find some way to inch this up if we get things going in the right direction in leadership and so forth and so on. Don't know. But I do want to say that there's one thing that remains missing from this, and it's not included in this for lots of reasons. And that is, how are we ultimately going to deal with the fact of tens of thousands of more Arizona students coming to the university with no investment from the state beyond a de minimis investment from the state to help them to come? There are 2 states in the union that operate this way, 2, New Hampshire and Arizona. New Hampshire is about the size of this Coke can. Arizona is about the size of this table by comparison, meaning it's, we're going to be one of the 10 most populated states. We're going to be one of the evolving new economies, and eventually in the long term, our state budget requests have got to find a way to figure out how we're going to help the issue of Arizonans attending the university. Our net loss for Arizonans, very important for the new regions to hear this, our net loss position with every dollar of state appropriation and every dollar of tuition that's being paid is almost $300 million, or around $300 million for our in-state students every year. And so that can't, as we try to expand all of this, that just can't go on forever. So I understand it's a longer term thing, and we've got new regents that are going to help us politically figure out how to design our message and so forth and so on. But we really need to focus on that. Morgan.
Thank you. I would simply make a couple of observations. I think the state investment request in front of you is well thought out, and President Crow already mentioned that we are seeing a lot of success, particularly in areas that have been highlighted, for expansion in order to serve the state and its citizens. Certainly the New Economy Initiative, over 30,000 engineering students, just one example of that. So having another investment by the state will be very helpful in terms of being able to address the needs of those students. We have very robust enrollment again this fall, around 6% overall increase. As I talk to my colleagues around the country, most of them are envious, frankly, of our ability to do that. Great work on the parts of our deans and our faculty and our enrollment management professionals.
Who are sitting over here.
Oh, they're over there. I didn't want them to hear that, but yeah. So tremendous job there. But what that also means is that, pursuant to President Crow's last point, we do need state investment in order to maintain that scale of operation at the institution. As you know, less than 10 cents of every dollar Arizona State University spends actually comes from state tax dollars. And so I think a case can be made that we're generating our own resources, helping ourselves. We'll talk later on today in the cost containment report about what we know is our ongoing commitment to be a highly cost-effective institution. We think we have data that bear that out. Yes, we can be better next year. We're working on that. But it also requires a partnership between the university and the state, and I think that's that piece of it. Arizona Teachers Academy, similar story. We actually this fall are over-enrolled relative to the resources that have been provided to us. And in fact, we have, I think, about 600 students on a waiting list that we would love to be able to, have join the Teachers Academy. We've all heard
including many moving to Arizona, committing to live in Arizona to be teachers because of this program.
And we have heard about, what's happening in our public schools and the need for, great teachers at the K-12 level. We're working very hard, to do our part to address that issue. And so having additional resources both during this year and next year for the Teachers Academy would be wonderful. And as President Crow indicated, we're a capital-intensive enterprise. And among the other things that are a little different than a lot of states across the country is the state of Arizona does not invest at a particularly significant level in the capital infrastructure of our institutions, which again means we find other ways to do that. But some of the things that we need to do to support the growth that we're seeing and the high-tech nature of engineering and other industries today, we're going to require some of that investment, not the least of which to mention taking care of what we already have, but always a balancing act. So in short, very, very supportive of this proposal, and we look forward to working with the board and the staff, the governor's office, legislature, et cetera, to try to make this happen.
Thank you. President Cruz-Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to express our appreciation for the very participatory process that has been carried out to get to this proposed budget request. I will echo some of the words from President Michael Crow. As we look at the New Economy Initiative, we're particularly heartened that we are able to not only embrace the NAI framework in terms of what our programmatic and new programs that we will be establishing will look like, but also that they not only align with the needs of the state, but they're also very well aligned with the recently approved NAU 2025 Elevating Excellence Strategic Plan. So as you all know, we've committed to significant increases in the number of professionals that we will be producing in the allied health field to not only position them well for life and career, but also in roles that then they can then give back to the people of Arizona by serving them and increasing their quality of life. So this includes everything from accelerated nursing programs in Prescott Valley, North Valley, Phoenix, in Tucson, a occupational therapy cohort at the PDC, increasing our presence in production of clinical mental health professionals in Yuma, additional RNs in Tuba City, and a Master of Social Work in an in-person program in Flagstaff. And that's just a few. I have about 10 more here that I could share. But you have seen this before. You know that our projections in each one of these areas are with a 100% increase, sometimes even more than that. over the next few years, and so the allocations through the New Economy Initiative will allow us to deliver on that promise. As we look at the other components of the budget, I will say that the Arizona Promise Program, the fact that it's being increased is another good trend as we seek to ensure that more Arizonans have access to an affordable education in the state so that they can also contribute to and benefit from the booming economy in the state. We're looking forward to being able to make those monies available to our students. Happy to talk about the Arizona Teachers Academy. We have with us here today our Senior Vice President, Christy Farley, who has been instrumental in getting this project up and running. And in terms of capital, we are grateful for the $50 million number there, but we do recognize that there's a significant amount of need that we will need to work towards, not only in terms of new buildings that we may have to bring on board, but also taking care of deferred maintenance, as well as figuring out ways through reasonable investments to repurpose existing buildings as we move into a more hybrid workforce, in this case of the University of Northern Arizona. As we look towards the future, of course, we are very mindful that these investments are, in a sense, one-time investments that will need to be allocated in a way that will produce recurring revenue streams so that then we can take care of other important needs, like perhaps additional workforce accelerator campuses in Phoenix and Tucson, and of course dealing with very Arizona-centric grand challenges like wildfire management initiatives. So all in all, supportive of this budget request, look forward to seeing how it evolves and appreciative of the opportunity to collaborate on it.
Thank you. President Robbins, there you are.
Hi, thanks, Madam Chair. I'll echo what both President Cruz Rivera and President Crow have already stated. I'll start off by saying I'm incredibly appreciative for this support to the universities. As President Crow indicated, we still have a long way to go, especially in funding Arizona students to be able to attend our universities. With regard to NEI initiatives, I just want to thank Regent Penley for his leadership and the board support for the NEI programs. Alone last year, I think there was more than $100 million that we benefited from in NEI monies. So we're incredibly grateful and very supportive of this budget request. Just a few highlights on where we'll be focusing NEI in the coming year. It'll be around health sciences, particularly the Center for Advanced Molecular Immunology in Phoenix, an Institute for Data, Network, and Computer Sciences. One thing that we haven't talked a lot about, but certainly Dr. Cantwell knows this all too well, is the lack of funding the core infrastructure for research at our universities. President Crow was talking about a building that was, hundreds of millions of dollars without putting any equipment in there. And oftentimes the equipment costs are significant. So we'll be looking for support around continuing to build the infrastructure for research so that we can advance and increase our research funding as we chase the $1 billion a year in research expenditures. So I'll just conclude and turn it over to Lisa by saying we're very supportive and very appreciative for this budget request. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Manson, President Robbins. I'll echo the comments of my colleagues and also would like to thank Lorenzo and ABOR staff for their support throughout this process. We've talked a lot about how the New Economy Initiative supports our state, and I think it's crucial that we continue to sustain and grow the investment in our collective future. And we're preparing the next generation. We're safeguarding our state's future. we're boosting our economy. And one of the things that I particularly appreciate about this proposal is that it highlights our unique strengths as institution. If we think about one of the investments that was made in University of Arizona last year, we received funding for cooperative extension, which highlights our land grant mission. So the NEI initiative allows us to talk to lawmakers and constituents about our unique strengths. And I really appreciate all the regions are doing for us on our behalf in advocating for more state funding.
Thank you. I appreciate the input from all of the universities. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Okay. So seeing none, I will ask that the board approve the fiscal year 2024 state budget request for the universities and the ABOR office as presented in the executive summary, with a revision that the $250 million request for the New Economy Initiative projects be submitted under the ABOR office request, and that the ABOR office and universities develop university allocations to submit as budget revisions to the governor's office at a later date. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. As I mentioned before, we are going to table the discussion of the Arizona Teachers Academy budget. And so we will move on to the discussion of the annual cost containment report. And John's going to provide us an overview of that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Morgan, just come on back. Before I ask the CFOs and universities to comment, I just wanted to highlight what is the annual cost containment report. So this is a statutory report, really contains two components. The first component is, what have you done this year to save money? You know, how are you being efficient? What are the steps you're taking to reduce the costs of higher education in the state? Second component, which I really love this document, if you haven't spent any time in it, we call it the list of degrees. We went round and round and round on what to call this thing. Don't have a great title for it, but it goes through all of the alternative pathways to a four-year degree in the state of Arizona that isn't at our main campuses. So it starts by going city by city across the state, you know, Mesa, Nogales, Phoenix, of course, Thatcher, Tucson, and which degrees do we offer in that community? And not just the first 2 years, but all 4 years. You know, what degrees do you have access to staying in these local communities? And it's really an impressive list. It also lists out the costs of accessing those degrees in those communities, which is often discounted from the cost at our main campuses. The back of the book then it includes all the other alternative ways to seek a degree: 2+2 programs, 3+1 programs, online programs, and other programs that we offer across the state. So it's excuse me, I think it's really a testament to the work that our universities have done to provide additional access opportunities to our students and to really push degrees geographically out across the state. So if you have a chance to look through that document, I would encourage it. The other document, way less interesting, Regent Penley has.
Yes.
Madam Chair, John, I would just ask you, I have gone through the document and I thought it was a really good demonstration of the extent to which our universities are providing education at a local level, especially at lower tuition prices than at the main university campuses. So I guess my question to you is are we planning to address that with local elected officials, whether that's legislators, mayors, or others, to tell them the story about what's happening in their own community, whether that's Thatcher, Yuma, Coolidge, or the other communities that are documented in this area? Because it strikes me that many of the locally elected individuals may well not be aware of what they're receiving or what their local citizens can receive from the universities. So that's the question, John. How are we going to tell them?
Madam Chair, Regent Penley, thank you. Certainly the universities promote this through their own things. The Board of Regents also promotes this. We hired a community relations individual, Larry Sandigo, that I think you all know. And he drives a lot of miles every year and meets with a lot of local communities. And universally, when he goes in to speak to community leadership, the message is, thank you, this is great, we want more. We need more degree programs, we need better access, we need more opportunities for our local community. And so we continue to work with primarily ASU with their ASU local program, and NAU with NAU statewide to see what we can do to expand that. We had a great partnership with UMA last year that involved the mayor's office, other community leadership, and certainly Arizona Western to try to expand programs there that was about half successful. We asked for more, we got some, we're still partnering with NAU, and I think, and UA and ASU in that case to expand opportunities in Yuma, but universally it's thank you, please more. Our local constituents need more. These programs have a variety of success. I think, students want to be on our main campus. There's a draw and an appeal there that can't be replicated, but these programs play their role, and we need to continue to support and expand. The other half of the report is also very fascinating and terrific, and we're going to ask the CFOs to comment a little bit about their efforts this year to save money and what we can demonstrate to the legislature and how we're being responsible stewards. Morgan, would you like to start?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Obviously, the examples of some of the things that we continually work on are in the report. I won't go over those unless there is a question on them. Last year, about $32.5 million worth of specific cost containment efforts. A lot of that is a partnership that we refer to as strategic sourcing between our procurement professionals and the folks who need various supplies, equipment, services, et cetera, to be able to perform their missions. We continue to mine that for cost reduction opportunities. But I think what I would also want the board to know is that those are specific tactics that we use. But overall, we try to look at the high level outcomes. So there's a kind of a symbiotic relationship between state investment and our ability to keep costs down. The Arizona State University has a commitment for over 20 years. That's the focus of our commitment, not to increase Arizona resident tuition by more than 3% a year. We've actually over-delivered on that in recent years. So over the last 5 years, the average annual increase for Arizona resident students is 1.5% annually. We actually had no increase in Arizona resident tuition for 2 years in a row. For this fall, as the board knows, there's a 2.5% increase for Arizona residents. I hasten to say that's also sticker price, in other words, before financial aid. And we allocate about $1 billion of aid of various types to our students annually, which then buys down that cost to students and their families. And over a longer term, over 10 years, that number is about 1.8% annual increase for Arizona residents. So we've been able to keep access and affordability a constant for our students, which we think is really important. And one of the ways that we do that, of course, is to manage our overall costs. So based on our budget for this year and our enrollment, we think we're going to spend about $17,300 per FTE student this year. Later, we'll share other reports with you that kind of benchmarks that both in the state and nationally. And I will tell you that what it will show is that we're a pretty cost-effective institution nationally. Our growth over the last 3 years, and including this year's budget, in what we call educational and general expenditures for FTE students is projected to be less than 1%, 0.8% actually in annual growth. And over the last 3 years of actual, that number is about 1.4%. So our growth in expenditures is actually decreasing. There's good and bad, opposite sides of the same coin there. And what you see, as I said, our enrollment continues to grow at a pretty high comparative rate. We are not necessarily getting state investment, to a pace in terms of a pro rata sort of a contribution. So what that means is, we're generating that from other sources, which, we'll do to the extent that we can. But you do reach a certain point where that becomes problematic in terms of being able to offer all the opportunities that you'd like to offer and the level of quality that you'd like to maintain. So, it's something that we work on continually, but we tend to look at those high-level outcomes measures when we evaluate, how are we doing? And it's not enough to look only at cost. If you don't care about quality, it's easy not to spend very much money. What's a lot harder is to do something with quality at scale, which is what we try to do all the time, and you hear President Crow talk about when he presents his annual State of the Universities report. So that's what we're trying to do. Happy to answer questions if you might have them.
And the only thing I would add is that to the context for the newer regions in particular, is that we're producing several times the number of Arizona graduates and more than 5 times the total number of graduates that we were when this institutional model began its shift. And we're still one institution. That is, the state has not had to invest in more universities, more buildings, more presidents, more this, more that, as is the typical model in other institutions. We haven't had to do that. And so the effectiveness and cost containment is massive if you look at it across the entirety of the scale of the output of the institution, which I like to say when people ask me about this model, I said, this is the Arizona way. This is the way we do it. And this is why it's working here and not working as well or at all in some other places.
Briefly, are there any other questions or comments from the board? I just have one question and comment. So, I mean, obviously your cost growth is growing at a significantly lower rate than your enrollment growth, which would lead to, obvious assumption of efficiencies. Just out of curiosity, what has the annual growth for Arizona resident students been in those same timeframes? So if you said, I'm looking at 1.5% average growth annually over the last 5 years in tuition, so that's Arizona tuition.
Correct.
What is the growth of the Arizona student population then in that kind of time frame?
2%.
I'll have to get back to you with an exact number.
2%, roughly.
Okay.
Sorry?
2%, give or take.
2-ish%. And, what's happened is increasingly, students are embracing, alternative modes of delivery. So we do see our ASU online enrollment growing faster than what we call our campus immersion enrollment, which is still pretty robust. I mean, 2% compared to a lot of institutions on the country, they're like, wow, we sure wish we had that. How are you doing that, et cetera. Some of that, but certainly not all of it, is demographics. And we think some of our strategies in terms of being able to scale, some of that leveraging technology are really, really important. Providing, relevant fields of instruction is part of that. And, the sticker price increase is a number that people tend to look at, but really doesn't tell the full story. You have to look at net price, and we continue to grow. And, in your state investment request for next fiscal year is an additional increment of Arizona Promise investment, which is really, really important in terms of access and affordability. But overall, what we are trying to do is make sure that we're taking every opportunity to deliver a high-quality experience, to Sun Devils, but keeping our costs managed overall. Because I think that's what people expect. And, we're hopeful that as decision makers see that, they will recognize that, we're a good investment.
I'll just add 2 other data points on that. So the 2% is the last 5 years, which was the time frame that you put in. It's been much higher over the longer period of time, and dramatically higher is the number of graduates from Arizona that we're producing. So the product.
Yeah. So the issue is a percentage number becomes somewhat deceiving.
Yes.
When you are the largest entity, and thereby your percent looks low, but your actual numbers,
Yeah, we did take 12% of the senior class in Arizona and enrolled it in ASU. So, so just 12% of the total numbers, and so of graduates. And so So, and that's been accelerating and evolving. So you're right that when you just ask what's that, it's against a huge base.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Arizona State University enrolls about 58% of full-time equivalent resident students currently. If you look at headcount, it's significantly in excess of 60%. We generate about 60% of bachelor's degrees in the state and about 67% of graduate degrees.
Thank you. I think those are important concepts to understand.
So Kent just give me the number. So we're up just in the last few years, 10,000 enrolled Arizonans, and so these are huge numbers. I mean, that's the size of whole campuses and universities in some locations.
What are the trends in terms of that percent in-state versus out-of-state on this dimension of students graduating?
In terms of enrollment growth?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you should come up here.
I'll give you the general answer, and then
Numbers are
Ken Hopkins can comment, our Vice President for Enrollment Management. But our out-of-state and international student enrollment, partly because of online, is accelerating faster than our in-state enrollment dramatically, and it's the means by which we're both providing a service to the nation and to the world and financing the university. So we're doing all those things together. We are focused since Regent Duval a couple of years ago really highlighted where we were with Arizonans. And we're seeing all of that uptick. We're moving forward. We're working in new ways to focus in Arizona, but the others are still accelerating more quickly.
Just under 2/3 of our online enrollment is non-resident. That increases in proportion with that sort of a breakdown. Our overall non-resident enrollment as a proportion of total.
You only looked at immersion students on campus, full-time students. What percent are out of state?
Percent to the out of state, Ken? About
35%.
Is that number increasing or decreasing?
But not increasing at the same rate that it once was. So, because we're focused on this, and so we don't have a. I mean, what I'll add to that is that what we're confident of is that the university that we've built for our full immersion environment is one of the coolest places to learn in the entire world, and that's what we're seeing. And so the Arizona students are immensely benefiting from the communities that are being built here. And so at the moment, except for the fact that we have this problem relative to the college going rate in Arizona, there's a problem in the high school, a problem at the cultural level. That's what we're really starting to focus our energy on now with our ASU Prep Digital, with our ASU courses, with our pathway program to get more Arizona kids into all three of the public universities.
But these out-of-state students are the golden goose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the international students also.
We shouldn't, downplay the importance of this component.
We'd be dead.
But you can't make it up in volume on the Arizona students. You'll kill yourself.
Yeah.
Lose money.
But importantly, we're also not been, there are no limits.
Yes, we are focused on that.
Arizona
Correct.
enrollment.
But our net loss position, and this is a public meeting, thank you. And so our net loss position for students from Arizona is so dramatic that it affects not what we do. I mean, we're plowing ahead, with every intensity possible to acquire more Arizona students, realizing that every one of them is a net loss.
Yeah, the thing that you'd like the legislature to understand is they are forcing us to become not primarily, but a major out-of-state player. They're forcing it, because you'd go broke if that weren't the case.
The state of Vermont only funds its public universities by that methodology. They don't provide any public support for their public universities.
Back to the same issue of 300 million.
Exactly. All right. Any other questions or comments for ASU? Cool. Thank you very much. Jose Luis?
On the cost containment front, we've made some headway on how we manage our public-private partnerships to reduce costs and ensure that we have the services we need for our students, particularly as it pertains to residential housing. Instituted several efficiency and effectiveness measures on our processes to improve them. Of course, very aggressive contracting and purchasing approaches, and then of course stewardship of our existing funds in a way that will also meet our commitment to conserving environmental resources. Our senior VP and CFO, Bjorn Flugstad, is online, and he may want to provide some additional detail.
Thank you, President Cruz Rivera, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just to add on to the President's comments, you've noted in this section on cost containment measures, efficiency measures, certainly a big focus at NAU, looking at where we can improve processes to reduce complexity, make them quicker, reduce rework. And you've noted a number of hourly improvements and a translation into expenditure reductions from this past year. Also note in the NAU section, a really particular point that is overlooked many times, and that's the coordination amongst all three universities on the procurement side. And the note that we included was the coordination on the RFP process for the student health insurance program. And you've noted a over 3% decrease in premiums negotiated. And our procurement team worked with ASU and U of A procurement teams to bring that to fruition. And then just the last note that I would just add is the point that we really are focused on being good stewards of monetary resources, but also environmental resources, and the investments in controls to monitor our energy consumption, as well as lighting improvements, as noted this past year within our Sky Dome, are projected to result in a utility savings decrease. So with that, I'll stop and be available for questions.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I noted the health, the three university consortium, and I guess I'd go forward, John, to see if there are other aspects of those kinds of negotiations that can lever to what Dr. Crow talked about, the unique state of the three universities here in Arizona. I don't know how widespread that is. It was clearly noted it was a savings. So I look and say, boy, beyond health, dental, are there other things that could be leveraged across the three universities to bring down costs in approaches of negotiation? So that just is a statement. I'd love to see more of that. It was a nice call out here, and I just don't know how deep and far that goes.
I'll just add to Regent Brewster's comment, just since you're in this business, that we have requested, pursued, cajoled, done everything we possibly could to get out of the control of the state, where we are forced to purchase insurance for our health insurance to lower the cost to the state employees themselves, because our employees happen to have a lower outcome cost associated with their insurance payouts. And we wanted to go to self-insurance or some other method of self-insurance, which would, we think, be a huge cost saving. We're not allowed. And so the state, for all of its, I don't know, fiscal conservative rhetoric, constrains us often out of their own, lacking a better term, full grasping of what could occur here. So we said, if you let us do that, then we'll demonstrate it. And then obviously you could find a way to do the same thing with the state employees, lowering costs for everyone. Paralysis, paralysis, paralysis. No decision, no decision, no decision. Morgan, how many times have we made this proposal over the last few years?
I would say at least 5.
Yeah. And what's the savings? We estimate our savings in the double-digit percentages. But
there are, we would love to be able to have direct management of our group health insurance, of our defined benefit retirement programs, and of a lot of our liability insurance programs as well. And so
I'll just add also that we think that if we had health clinics on our campus that our employees could just walk into and get what they needed for their basic stuff, the overall health costs for everyone would go down dramatically, and there'd be, we'd build that into our cost structure, but our overall cost would go down. And so we've made no progress on this, because every time we say this, they say, well, then the state's cost for a state employee for health insurance will go up. So the answer is no. Or even a more complicated answer called hell no.
Thank you, Bjorn. Morgan?
Madam Chair, I would like just to add to Regent Brewster's question or suggestion. All three universities work together very well. You know, Bjorn's point about student health insurance is one example, but we do cooperative purchasing pretty broadly. And we don't stop simply with the three Arizona Public Universities either. We have access to a lot of national networks that we try to use for things that everybody buys, you know, PCs, for example, or furniture, or various types of office supplies. And, you know, little tiny margins there at very high scale, you know, are sort of that game. And so the more that you can kind of aggregate spend, the better. So some of those might be, some of those might be at, you know, at a like a Pac-12 level. Some of them are at a national level. There are various purchasing consortia that all of us work together on. I think all three universities' procurement personnel work very well on that. You know, they know how to collaborate and the benefit of it, and so that's something that we do try to do. You know, if you have any other ideas, we're happy to have suggestions. But you know, at some point, if you're interested in hearing more about it, I'm sure they would be happy to share. Be great.
Thank you. We'll move on to you, Vay.
So I'll start. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this. I'll just weigh in on the healthcare benefits side. And obviously, President Crow knows since I've been here, we've talked about this. And I couldn't be more supportive of the idea that we would love to be able to control those costs if we were permitted to do so. With regard to the university, I'll let Lisa make the comments here, but I'd just start out by saying, consistent with our strategic plan that we developed almost 5 years ago now, we focused on student success, obviously, in our first pillar, research, international, what it means to be a land-grant university, and maybe the most important pillar that is in our strategic plan is operational efficiency of the university. And we think there are tremendous opportunities that we've been working through. We've, under Lisa and Liesl folks, our provost leadership, we've changed our budgetary model, which we needed to do. But we think there are incredible opportunities for more centralization of things like IT, HR, marketing, communication, and fundraising activities across the university. So I'll turn it over to Lisa, but we're grinding away at trying to become more efficient.
Thank you, President Robbins, Chair Manson. I'm smiling because literally I've been thinking this is so important to us that we wrote it into our strategic plan. We are adamant about controlling costs. And like Morgan said earlier, it's not just about controlling costs, it's in ensuring that there is quality along with services. And to President Robbins' comment about shared services, we have already made headway with seeing cost savings and efficiencies through proliferation of shared services across campus. We have colleges and support units that have created service centers that consolidate activities that all of us have to manage: travel, purchasing, contracts, human resources, financial functions. And through those, we're not just seeing a reduction in costs. We have consistent and quality practices that are in compliance, and we ensure that we have security and accuracy of transactions. Like Bjorn mentioned, we are laser focused on where we can find efficiencies with our building systems. In this last year alone, we saved over $1 million in energy efficiency projects like utility contract renegotiations, metering improvements, enhancements to our software, and HVAC upgrades. And obviously, all three universities look for opportunities for when we can refinance debt. At the University of Arizona, we've saved over $119 million through debt refinancing between fiscal year 08 and fiscal year 21. That was 26 refinancing opportunities that we took for system revenue bonds, speed, and certificate of participation. And as President Robbins mentioned, we just implemented our new budget model, activity-informed budgeting, on July 1st. And we expect that this, we have already seen that there will be greater attention to leadership and strategy in our decision-making around budget, which will allow us to be more agile and responsive to strategic opportunities to invest. And we expect that we will see opportunity to implement programs that will help increase revenues and identify other alternative revenue sources. I'll stop there and ask if there are any questions.
Any questions from the board? All right, I thank you all for the details on your efforts in cost containment. I know it's important, to all of us that we are aware of the efficiencies that you're taking advantage of and other opportunities that you may see in the future. I'm going to move that the board approve the annual cost containment report for Arizona State University, Northern Arizona University, and the University of Arizona for submission to the governor and legislature. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. The final item for our agenda today is the approval of the report on the Committee of Free Expression for submission to the state, and I will turn that over to John as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me thank the CFOs for their excellent summaries of the cost containment report. That was really a great discussion. State law requires the Board of Regents to establish a committee to review any potential barriers to free speech on our campuses and then report on any identified barriers. And that is the report that's in front of you. The committee is made up of representatives from each university, including experts in the law, ethics, communications. There are student service experts, law enforcement representatives, and student representatives, and I chair that committee. The committee met, we reviewed information provided by the universities and found no barriers or disruptions of lawful free expression within any of our public universities over the last academic year as described by the law. The report does detail some instances of concern that were raised over the course of the year related to free expression and how each university has addressed those concerns. All three of our universities provide active support for free speech activities on campus, including managing campus events to support meaningful opportunities for protest and to listen to invited speakers. In addition, the universities engage with and provide support for students and community members who feel negatively impacted by the speech of others. The report details board and university policy and practices about free speech on campus and the value of free speech. This year, NAU's Faculty Senate recommended and President Cruz Rivera endorsed the adoption of a freedom of expression statement, reflecting the core principles of the Chicago Statement. All three of our universities have adopted those core principles. Finally, the report includes a summary of the Regents' Cup, including a congratulations to this year's winner, the University of Arizona. So again, congratulations. It's my understanding the applications for next year's event are already open, and looking forward to that upcoming competition, which I believe is in February this year. All three of Arizona's public universities maintain the highest green light rating from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, FIRE, recognizing the commitment of the board and our universities to free speech. So that's what's in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Regent Tennant?
Thank you, Chair Manson. I met with the coaches for the debates and the storytelling the other day, along with Sarah from our office, and I was just really pleased with their enthusiasm, and they also reported how much support they're receiving from our presidents and the provosts at the three universities, and I just want to thank each of the presidents and our provosts for supporting those coaches. They make it possible. They do a lot of extra work, and they help to promote free speech on our campuses through their efforts. So thank you, Presidents.
Thank you, Regent Tennant. President Crow?
I just want to comment on this matter of free speech. So I hope that the newer regents and others even in the audience realize that our three public universities, and I'll speak only for ASU, are battlers and fighters for the expression of free speech beyond any institution that I'm even aware of. The level of conflict that we absorb to be able to implement the levels of free speech expression are beyond any tolerable limit that other institutions would even be capable of managing. Even in the last 2 semesters, from all sides of the political spectrum, we have been relentlessly attacked for allowing people to speak on campus. Relentlessly attacked from every angle that you can possibly imagine, yet all of those people have spoken on campus. All of them. All of them. And so it is, these are public safety issues, these require security, these require everything that you can imagine because, and then there is this general rhetoric out there coming from someone, I don't know, that somehow we don't believe in free speech. The people that attack us the most are those that believe for allowing certain people to speak are the exact same people that believe and say to us that we are not protectors of free speech. It is one of the most bizarre behaviors I've ever seen coming out of the same person's mouth. You're not a protector of free speech, blah, 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 blah. Why did you let that person speak here? I don't know. Do you have a brain that's connected on both sides? Because it seems like you don't. And so we spend time, energy, money, we risk everything that you can possibly imagine to do this. Everything that you can imagine. And so there are people that have spoken here who have been banned from speaking at other universities. There are people that have spoken here that have led to riots at other universities. Not here. They speak. They speak. And we manage it in a way where it's as safe as possible. Someday I'll show you the multiplicity of inputs that I've received myself. Apparently, I hate certain religions. Apparently, I was raised in one religion as a hater of another religion because we allowed this person to speak on this campus. And I'll say one other thing relative to free speech. So we have battled in the courts, battled against those that have sued us, battled against everyone that you can imagine to maintain the openness of this institution. So I just hope that regents understand this is not a casual thing for us in the midst of where our society is right now. And we are the protector of free speech. Now, that doesn't mean you can come onto campus and say, I need everybody over here to line up so that we can kill all these people. There are limits to free speech. You cannot call for riots in the crowd that you have. I mean, there are limits, but within that constraint, we signed the University of Chicago document. All 3 universities are green lit by fire. Very few states have all of their universities in this space. I mean, it's just weird to even hear it. I was even looking at former regents, former student regents today in their Twitter feeds, perpetrating this sort of separated brain logic. And I just want regents to be aware that it is something that we take very seriously. We have many, more than you would ever imagine. More than you would ever know, because the only ones you know is the ones that make the news. You don't know the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of cases that we have every semester across all dimensions of the university where we're fighting and protecting free speech. So just want to make sure regents were aware that it's not a trivial thing for us.
No, I appreciate that. And I think one of the things that we can be most proud of in this state is that I don't know that there are any other states where all of the public universities have green fire ratings. We talk about it, regularly as if it were kind of standard operating procedure, and that is not the case. There are a limited number of universities and higher education institutions across the country that earn those green fire ratings, and they are hard earned. And so I think that is a point to be noted as we leave this discussion.
I'll just add one other thing. So we occasionally encounter flaws in the design of the structure of the institution, so that one of our departments recently in their history had been basically voting on every speaker that came in under the name of the department. And they were voting against certain people. Not anymore. You can't vote who can speak at the institution. It doesn't work that way. If Professor X would like person Y to speak at the university, then Professor X can put his name at stake relative to that person, and that person's going to be able to speak here. When John Eastman was banned from speaking at other universities while he was involved in the insurrection against the United States, he spoke here. And so I'm just telling you that there's nothing that is going to keep us from implementing and fighting for free speech.
Thank you. So do I have any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, I'm going to move that the board approve the report of the Committee on Free Expression for submission to the state as required by ARS 15-1867. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. We are now going to recess the public meeting and take a 5-minute break. We will come back and convene in executive session at, let's call it 10:25, and we will meet in the executive conference room. And then we will adjourn that executive session at approximately 4:15 this afternoon. So I need a motion to enter into executive session at 10:25 to discuss the items on the executive session agenda.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does carry. We are now recessed. Just as a reminder, we will meet at 10:25 in the executive conference room across the hall.